And now, direct from Las Vegas.
Welcome to Football Forecast Weekly. Each week, your host, Trip Mitchell, will introduce you to the top handicapper in Vegas, Dennis Tobler, and one of the top sportscasters in the U.S., Fred Wallen.
And welcome, everyone, to a very special edition of Football Forecast Weekly. Hi, I'm Trip Mitchell, coming to you from our winter headquarters. Dennis Tobler Enterprises has a beautiful condo on the beach in Cancun, Mexico, and he loaned me the private jet to come down. And reporting in from Vegas, where it's not as nice, Dennis Tobler. Dennis, welcome to your show.
Well, thank you very much, Trip. I hope you enjoy your vacation, and it's certainly good we have Zoom.
Yeah, exactly. And now we'll report in from the Dennis Tobler West Coast headquarters. Fred Wallen. Fred, how are you this week?
I'm fine. It's a little cooler here in Southern California, and we're going to be hot on this show, I guarantee you.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the big upset last week in college football before we segue into this week. And that was the Oregon Ducks traveling out to Columbus, Ohio, and beating previously one of the best teams in the country, Ohio State. Fred, what were your thoughts on that game?
As indicated, I thought it was going to go over. When I wagered it was 62, it ended up 63, so we got fortunate. But Oregon can score on anybody. Ohio State, many years, is overrated because it's Ohio State. Big Ten always gets a few extra bonus points because it's the Big Ten. The Pac-12, because it's the Pac-12, you subtract a little bit. But since Cristobal's taking over, and even before that, just look over the years, the Oregon Ducks can score on anybody, and Ohio State can't seem to stop anybody, giving up 31 and 35 back-to-back. So it wasn't a total shock that Oregon won. I mean, and certainly with the points, it wasn't a shock. The only shock is that people don't give the Oregon Ducks more credit, that they just deserve more credit.
And Dennis, what were your thoughts on the game?
I think he's absolutely right about that. I think the East Coast press is so prejudiced towards the Big Ten and the Southeast Conference. If those teams had to play in the Pac-12 all year long, you wouldn't find them going 10-1 and 10-2. They'd be 7-6. So I think the West Coast teams are underrated and they're under-publicized, which is very good for gamblers because that was a lock. Taking 14.5 points with a team like Oregon, and I don't care what they did the week before. You know, people who look at the week before's game before they bet this week's game, they're going to lose because it's never that easy. So I thought it turned out just the way I thought. I didn't know if they'd upset them or not, but I knew they'd cover the line easy.
And gentlemen, the other team that gets the benefit of the doubt, and I hate it, but I made a lot of money off them, is betting against Notre Dame, especially when it comes down, if they make it into the Final Four. They are horrible.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's the same situation, isn't it? Isn't Notre Dame overrated every year too, just like Ohio State? Notre Dame doesn't have to play in a conference, so therefore they really just play the nobodies of the college football world every year, and the big games they supposedly have are with Purdue's and teams like that normally don't even break 500. So I think they've been overrated for quite a few years, but I'm with you. I mean, I've been taking the points versus Notre Dame for a while, but Fred had an interesting take on that game that I missed. Fred, tell us about it not even being on regular TV.
Well, you see, NBC is trying to push its Peacock. So last week to Toledo against Notre Dame, they did not put it on regular television. They only had it on Peacock. And there are people out there, folks, believe it or not, who don't have an iPhone. There are other people out there who don't know how to stream. There are other people out there who don't know how to stream from your iPhone to your television set. NBC didn't seem to care. They want people to know about Peacock so you can buy more stuff from Peacock. So they did not have it on regular TV. So I sort of was hoping the Irish would lose just based on that principle. Now you got Purdue. You're getting points. Purdue's pretty good. Brohm's a pretty good coach. He always has been. And he's an honest guy. I've interviewed him a few times. He's not your typical football coach. He'll tell you the truth. I think Purdue can cover that spread against the Irish this week. And this week, yes, it'll be on NBC.
Well, fortunately, and Fred, I was a little worried when you say that NBC was pushing their Peacock. I thought that was code for something that I don't need to know about, but I'm so glad that. Well, here's the situation. And it's ironic. We met a couple down here who both work for Comcast, and we'll keep our editorial situation out of it. But these traditional cable companies, and Comcast owns NBC and Peacock, and they're trying to get people to subscribe to all these over the top. Fred and Dennis, people are going to look back to the last 20 years as a sports fan and realize how good we had it, because you literally could turn on your TV and watch every game you wanted.
That's what I mentioned before on the show, that in 1991, 93, in those years, we were syndicated nationally on TV. There were C-band satellites, and there were no bands or blocks or pay-per-views at that time. So if I was on Pittsburgh channel, it could be seen in all 4 time zones at the Eastern time. And if it come West, every time it could be seen. So over the course of one show, it might be seen 16 times over the 4 time zones for free on C-band satellite. Now, if you don't pay for a streaming platform from one or another or all of them, you're going to miss something. So, yes, we did have it a lot better in the old days.
Okay, and the last thing we're going to do, we're going to take a short break and then go to the NFL. But I will say that the 3 of us are old enough to remember that back in the 60s, you would only have a game on ABC and literally one college football game on Saturday. And we have come a long way. And virtually, if you're a big-time school, your games are all going to be televised. And you got to admit, that's been great.
Yeah, you get to see everyone.
Yeah. And okay, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be talking NFL week number 2. You're watching Football Forecast Weekly. We'll be right back.
Now Place Your Bets, the world's #1 sports betting film, is now available on DVD. Produced by Dennis Tobler, this Indie Film Fest winner has reached the top of the documentary list. Order your DVD today at www.nowplaceyourbets.com or stream from Vimeo today anytime. Now Place Your Bets. Watch it today.
And welcome back to Football Forecast Weekly. My name is Trip Mitchell, and each and every week I get to be with 2 of the nicest, smartest guys in football. Unfortunately, they can't be here this week, so Dennis Tobler and Fred Wallen are up, but we'll have a good time anyway. And let's look at our first game of the week, the Bengals at the Bears. Dennis, why don't you start out on this one?
Well, the Bears opened as a 3-point home favorite. They got demolished by the Rams, as I knew they would. Andy Dalton is not a major league quarterback. I don't care what anybody says. He's had his shot at it, and he's not. I think their second-team quarterback's going to play more of the year than Andy Dalton will play for them. And I didn't see anything good out of the Bears defense either, because I think the Rams could have rolled over them even more if they'd have wanted to. And that being said, pretty much all of the games turned out with the ones who were hurt. And when we spoke about the last exhibition game of the year, I think all these games last weekend were played that way. And I think that's why a whole bunch of people won a whole bunch of money.
Fred, what are your thoughts?
I think Justin Fields will get more an opportunity this week. I actually had the Bengals as my play of the week as far as my pick'em thing, where you can't lose. You have to go week to week. And I had Cincinnati over Minnesota, not necessarily because Bengals were that good, because I didn't think Minnesota was any good. And I was lucky. They were up by a couple touchdowns. Minnesota comes back and goes into OT, and with like no time left, the Bengals do win 27-24. So I'm fortunate to still be in these contests. So I like the Bengals a little bit here. I think Minnesota, among the worst teams in the National Football League as far as pure talent is concerned. It's not anti-Mike Zimmer. I just think they just don't have that much talent. And also, you can take this for what it's worth. Cousins won't take the vaccination. I don't know how many guys on the team appreciate that, where I think we're going to see trouble inside the clubhouse, inside the locker room. So I'm a little anti-Minnesota from that aspect. I'm going with the Bengals.
No, I agree.
And on a personal level, I used to like Kirk Cousins, and this crap this year, I'm cheering against him every chance I get.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous that the leader of the football team would take that stance, instead of leading his team in the proper direction, because we all know this year a forfeiture is a loss. It's not just a postponement.
Sure. And then next game, the Colts hosting the Rams with Matthew Stafford. Fred, why don't we start with you on that one?
Well, Stafford played about as well as he can play. I mean, he went deep, and the Ram receivers can break. Even if Cooper Kupp is not that fast, he can catch a 7-yard pass and turn it into a 50-yard reception. So I think that makes a difference. I think I like the Rams a little bit. It's not one of my major plays, but I do think I like the Rams a little bit in this encounter.
Dennis?
Good time for me to explain everything to the audience out there too. When it comes to me betting these games, I don't go in and look at who's hurt, who's not hurt, or anything like that. I have a software system that provides me with the positive edge bets over what the world line is. So whenever I bet, it's more about a number advantage than it is an opinion on the game. However, I do know the coaches, I do know the players, and once it's jogged in my memory, I can turn it around to make my case for the bet. So last week I went 10-1 on these things. The main thing is to have the best of the number when you're making a bet. That's the key to it. Wentz and these guys like him, they just keep getting chances over and over and over again. And I think it's the same thing with Stafford. You know, he played pretty good, but what are we going to do? Just keep running the same quarterbacks like they do coaches from team to team to team? We got to see somebody break out pretty soon. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. And just to reiterate, so Dennis's system that not a lot of people do, but you have the software to do it.
Well, we're proprietary and no one has the system to do it because we scrape the world's lines and come up with what we call a baseline number. That baseline number is what we feel the actual line is based on all the sports books around the world. So whenever we can bet into an outfit that has a number worse than what the world line is, we take advantage of that. Our computer calculates it up, tells us how much of an advantage we have, and we bet accordingly. We don't make any bets unless we have an advantage over the point spread. And the point spread that we consider to be accurate is the one that's the consensus world line.
And Fred, real quick, you, because of living in LA, you see that LA advantage or that LA prejudice on the lines, whereas in Vegas and in Reno in particular, a lot of time the line will be different there than anywhere else in the world because they've got to take into account LA bettors and San Francisco bettors coming into Nevada. Can you talk about that just for a sec?
No, it's 100% right. I mean, obviously, at one point, I think 50 to 60% of the people that were wagering in Vegas were from Southern California. So obviously that's worth a point or two or point and a half or half a point. It's worth something. There's no question about that because you are slightly prejudiced towards your club. There are some anti Los Angeles people from down here too, but the majority, as you indicate, would go in that direction. But I'd like to mention something. Last night on TV, on DirecTV, I saw Two for the Money. Al Pacino playing Walter Abrams, and in this case, Dennis Tobler. A perfect combination. Dennis, did you ever watch that movie?
No, I haven't.
Rene Russo. You're actually Walter Abrams. You're the guy that leads the way, and how it was made in 1998, so it's different than all the computerized stuff now, but it's still very close to what we're doing right here on the Football Forecast.
I'm going to take that as an extended compliment. Thank you.
Well, Al Pacino had his moments. Let's get to the now. One of the big upsets last week, or shocks, was the Saints. How well they came out and played against the Packers. They're traveling to Carolina, and we both mentioned, all three of us mentioned, Carolina was a well-coached team, and so they're hosting the Saints this weekend. Dennis, let's start with you.
Well, I liked the Saints last week, and I think I indicated to you that Jameis Winston would fit into that program really well with those great offensive linemen and the coaching. And Jameis Winston did fit into that really well. And also, Green Bay was another team that we already said that Rodgers had not played it down all year yet, and he looked like it. Okay. I mean, if you're 40 years old and you haven't played all year and that's your first game, you're going to stink, and he stunk. And not only that, Not only that, but almost every game where the injuries were a factor, they became a factor in the point spread. So a lot of these teams were way offline on their numbers, and it was pretty easy pickings. I went 5-0 in the $4 million circuit contest. So when I can go 5-0 in a $4 million contest, the games were easy to pick.
Yeah, and therefore that's why I'm on the Dennis Tobler condo, and I flew down on the Dennis Tobler jet.
While I stay in Vegas and work.
Yeah. So let's go to a AFC East matchup. The Buffalo Bills, a disappointment last week, traveling to Miami. And what I don't understand, gentlemen, is why aren't these games scheduled in December? Why do they have to travel down to Miami in September? But anyway, Fred, let's start with you on that one. The Bills at the Dolphins.
Well, I surprised the Bills lost to the Steelers. I thought Buffalo would find a way to win. I don't think they'll lose in this case. And I've got the ratings from USA Today of all the 32 clubs. They've got the Buccaneers 1, the Chiefs 2, Rams 3, the Browns 4, the Saints 5, Seahawks 6, Cardinals 7. The Bills, they've dropped all the way to 10th from 5th. I don't think it should have dropped that much. I think, as we've talked about last week on this show, there was no exhibition season. Nobody who of note played. If they played more than 3 or 4 downs, we were fortunate. And we saw what happened with Rodgers. So I think the Bills are much better than the 10th rated team in the National Football League. They're closer to what they were last week as the 5th. I think they'll win in this case.
Okay, and Dennis?
Yeah, I do too. The line on the game is the Bills are 3-point road favorites. And I kind of thought at halftime, maybe they got complacent. It looked like they were going to run all over them. And then Pittsburgh put it all together. But Pittsburgh has a solid club. And the 6.5 points there was too many points in that particular instance. However, they did backdoor cover it because they were behind the whole game. But you can't count out Big Ben. He's got it. His last year probably is this year. We'll see. But they don't have that tough of a conference to play in back east. And it did surprise me that Buffalo lost the game. It didn't surprise me that they didn't cover, but it did surprise me they lost. In this week's game, I'm going to take Buffalo too. Miami is impressing, but I don't know. I think they're hurt. I just think they're hurt. The way they're rotating in and out, offensive linemen and things like that. I just don't. They got an easy out last week. This week at home, it's going to be tough to handle the Bills after that loss.
Dennis, let me ask you a question. You think Tua has a major league arm? My point is, he can throw the 20-yard pass. Do you think he can throw the 40 and 50-yard pass as well as some of the top quarterbacks in this league?
No, I don't think so. And I'm not even sure he's a big league quarterback. I mean, to this point, he hasn't proved anything. Got to give him a break for his injuries, obviously, but no, I agree with you. I don't think he can turn the game around. And it was pretty easy dinking and doinking last week. So this week they're going to have their hands full with Buffalo because they're irate about losing their first game.
Okay. And we're going to take another short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the world beaters, the Houston Texans. Fred's 32 ranked team, Dennis is 32, and somehow they came up with one last week. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with the money segment on Football Forecast Weekly. We'll be right back.
Read the latest breaking news in the sports betting world. Sportsbook review, monitors, and releases information pertaining to online sportsbooks and the gambling industry, the good, the bad, and occasionally the ugly.
And welcome back to the show. Fred Wallen's in our LA office. Dennis is in Vegas, and I'm in Cancun. Who has the better deal there? I won't get into it. The Texans traveling to Cleveland. What do you think of the Texans' performance last week, Dennis?
I was a little surprised that Tyrod Taylor played so well. But after all, he's been in the league 5 years. So he did play well. And they didn't play anybody. And here again, the injury situation popped up big time. The injuries on the other side last week enabled Houston to go, but they did surprise everybody, and I'll give you that. And maybe they're not the worst team in the league, but they're close. And this week they're going to get their brains blown out because they play the Cleveland Browns at home, and the Browns are coming off that tough loss to Kansas City last week. And I think the Browns are much improved. I think they're starting to put it together, and I think they're going to blow them out. The line on this game opened at 14, went down to 13, went down to 12.5, and now I see everybody's hammering it back up, and I'm one of them, because I don't think that it'll be less than 2 touchdowns that they'll win this game by. So that's one of the best bets on the boards. The Browns lay the points.
Hey, Fred.
Well, I do think the Texans, the worst team in talent in the National Football League, very fortunate to win last week. But I've learned historically that I stay away from any time a team is more than a double-digit favorite. So I'm not, wouldn't straight up. Obviously, the Browns are going to win this game. But giving 2 touchdowns, I just my history of doing that, I lose 2 out of 3 times. So I always pass on anything where I've got to give anything like 2 touchdowns. But I think in the end, the Browns are going to win. And now they'll win by 5 touchdowns because I'm going to stay away from the game.
Well, let me add something. Let me add something real quick, Trip, on this game, because it was one of the biggest point spread moves in the total this week. It opened at 45. It's sitting at 48 now. And I think Fred hit the nail on the head. You know, they could score 5 touchdowns. So I think the over in this game is definitely a play for all the serious bettors out there.
And I'll show you why I haven't done as well as I should. Fred was talking about whenever he's laying over two touchdowns, he loses 2 out of 3 times. And I'm thinking, but you win 1 out of 3. That's not bad. That might be why I should stay clear of money management. Let's go to the Niners at the Eagles. What do you think about that one? Dennis, we'll start with you.
Well, last week I told everybody the San Francisco 49ers had 3 quarterbacks, and they have a great coach, and they have a great offensive system and a tough defense, and they were going to roll, and they did. Philadelphia surprised me a little bit last week, and I'm going to have to see them in person. I didn't get to watch the game yet, and I'm going to have to see how they came out of that. They didn't surprise me covering the spread in that game, but to win as handily as they did, no one expected that. So this is kind of a wait and see game in this situation, I think. I'm not sure I'm ready to make a prediction of laying 3.5. That hook on the road for the 49ers, I do not like. I mean, they could win by 3 very easy in a game like this, and you would lose. So, and I don't do teasers or anything like that. So in this situation, I'm going to have to pass.
Fred, what's your thoughts?
My thoughts are the following. I used to play fantasy yearly. Now I played week by week. But if I had played it yearly this year, I would have taken Mostert, the 49er running back, in the 2nd or 3rd round, because I think he's that talented. He is now out for the season. The 49ers lose a great deal, and that indicate the hook is a little bit too much for me, so I'm going to have to pass on the game. Eagles Hurts played very well in game number 1. So this is another game that Fred does not have a strong opinion on. I think if Mostert were playing, I would lean a little bit toward the 49ers, but he's out for the season.
Okay, let's go to an AFC matchup. The Denver Broncos travel to Jacksonville. Fred?
Well, it's interesting. The Broncos made their choice at quarterback, and off of game 1, it certainly worked out well. Urban Meyer was screaming at his coaches, screaming at his players. So I'm going to lean a little bit toward the Broncos here. I don't like coaches who scream at others because you get all the money, and when you win, you take all the credit. So basically, shut your mouth if you're losing. I'm going with Denver.
Dennis?
I believe last week I told you Denver was going to run away with it when they put Bridgewater in at quarterback. That would solve their problems, and it did. And also they played a very injured team, but they played very well. They have Von, the All-Pro Super Bowl MVP, back this year. On the other side of the ball, they got a defensive end rusher. They got a tough defense. I'm with Fred. And now here's where we're going to give people an example of how the world spread works. When the world line opened up on this game, the Broncos opened up as a 3-point road favorite over Jacksonville. All right, when the syndicates and all of the wise guys were finished betting by Tuesday night. The line's now 6.5. So the line went up 3.5 points on the Denver Broncos versus Jacksonville at home on the movement of real money. When we see a movement of real money like this, we're on it. So when it moved from 3 to 3.5, we started to get on it. It goes to 4. We see it's going to keep going more. We get on it at 4. Now that it's on at 6.5, we've got an open middle before the game even starts, where we can bet back and either win twice our money or just lose the juice. That's how it works. And when you have a computer to hash it all out for you, it's pretty easy.
Well, sounds good. Let's get to
So
a game that,
Tripp, let me finish with this. The Denver Broncos are a solid pick this week because of that. The line moving 3 points on an open in an NFL game is practically unheard of. So if you bet Jacksonville, you're going to lose your money. You may not win if you bet Denver, but your 90% odds are in your favor with Denver.
okay. Let's go to Bill Belichick. He and the Patriots traveling to the Jets. They're laying 6, at least the number I have, with a 42.5 total. Fred, why don't we start with you?
Not a strong opinion, but I don't see Belichick losing again this week, just based on his history. So slight lean toward New England in this circumstance. Second start for Mac Jones. Obviously, the first start gave him some work, and usually you improve the second time out. I expect that to be seen on Sunday. So I'll lean toward the Patriots of New England.
And Dennis?
Here's another real indicator, Tripp. The line on the Patriots opened 3.5 on the road and quickly moved to 5.5.
Okay,
so I mean, the Patriots are taking all kinds of money from the wise guys in the syndicates, and they should, because the Jets are just hurt. They're banged up everywhere. They don't have any talent anywhere anyway, and I don't believe this quarterback is ever going to cut the mustard.
Well, he got sacked. He got sacked 5 or 6 times in his first game, and he's got some wheels on him, and that's a tough way to go. Let's go to the Raiders, coming off a big win at home in Vegas. They travel to Pittsburgh, and they're getting 5.5 points on the road. Dennis, what do you think of the Raiders?
First of all, wow, what a game. What a game the Monday night game was here in Las Vegas on Monday night. I don't know if I've ever seen a more exciting NFL game. People thought they had won and lost that game 4 or 5 different times. And that was my big pick last week. And even though I went 5-0 in the contest, I lost that big Monday night game. I had the Ravens. I had the Ravens bet before their 2 running backs got hurt that they brought in late in the week. Well, it's pretty tough sledding when that happens to you. So you're going to have to try to bet back or something like that. But here again, the Raiders played astronomically above their talent level. And here again, a 70,000 person crowd makes a huge difference in football games, because if they would have played that without a crowd, they would have lost that game. But somehow, some way, they got it out to win, and I have to give them credit for that. And Derek Carr, too. I mean, I've never been a fan of Derek Carr, and I keep waiting for him to throw the interception the other way. But, boy, he lobbed that ball up in the air like a wounded duck, and they were able to run under it and get the best of Baltimore. It kind of blew my mind. What I took out of the game more than anything was, of course, the quarterback. He had not played during preseason much anyway, and he fumbled twice, and that was the ball game. Jackson, when he fumbled twice, that cost them the ball game. But boy, oh boy, you got to give it to the Raiders for their fight. Now, this week's game coming up, it's going to be pretty hard for them to go on the road, play an early morning East Coast game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are coming off their road win. I look for the Raiders to get hammered this week. Sorry, Raider fans. It's just way too much to ask. They got every break in the world. They opened the stadium and they won. The Steelers, they opened at 5. They went to 7 immediately, and then they're back to 5.5 again. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that a lot of wise guys and syndicates jumped on the Steelers to begin with, and then it tells you a lot of guys come back on the other side because the 7 was too high a number. So sitting at 5.5, it's a tough number, but anything under 6, I'm going to be playing Pittsburgh.
And Fred?
Well, the bottom line is I don't think John Gruden likes Derek Carr a whole lot. I think he was looking for a way to replace him. Mariota is now hurt. There is some question if he's going to be capable of playing this week if Carr does go down. Carr played, I thought, a spectacular game. I really do. And as Dennis indicated, Lamar Jackson's fumbles turned that game totally around. If it's more than a touchdown, and if I have to wager, I'm taking the Raiders. If it's under a touchdown, I'm probably going to pass. And the Steelers, again, because it's Pittsburgh, because of the history of winning, they get a lot of maybe extra credit. So we'll see what happens. They're at home. But again, if it goes back to above a touchdown, I'm going to lean a little bit toward the Raiders. If it goes under it, I'm going to pass.
Okay, and let's go quickly. The Atlanta Falcons traveling to Tampa Bay. Fred, what are your thoughts? 12-point line, by the way, the Falcons getting 12.
Well, if the Texans have the least talent, if the Texans do not have the least talent in the league, the Falcons do have the least talent in the league. The only question is, will Tampa Bay, after the great comeback on national TV where the ratings were through the roof, will they be as sky high this week? I doubt it. Obviously, I think Tampa Bay will win this game. But again, the points would be the question. Straight up, obviously, the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Hey, Dennis?
Well, in this game, I agree with Fred. Atlanta's terrible. And they're going to get killed in this game. It's just a guess on what the number is going to be, whether it's going to be 12 or 14 or what it's going to be. But I do want to say something about the Tampa Bay Bucks. They're the world champs for a reason. And Brady's the greatest quarterback ever for a reason. And for them to even come back and win last week was another miracle as far as I was concerned. And I don't see anybody, they're going to have to put together a heck of a game to beat them. But at home here, I look for Tampa Bay just to play like prevent defense and run the ball and not let anybody get hurt. They know they're going to win the game at the end of the game. So to actually lay that kind of points on a game like this wouldn't be a smart investment. So I'm going to pass on the bet side.
Okay, and Dennis, while we have the Vikings traveling to Arizona.
Well, the Vikings, we've already discussed them a little bit. I agree 100% with them. I think they have clubhouse problems, and I don't like Kurt. What's his name? I never did. He's another one of them guys that I don't know how they stay in the league so long. Okay, and they're going to get killed by Arizona. All right, Kyler Murray and those guys have got it going on. Their offense goes every direction. The defense has no idea how to match up with them, and the speed of Arizona is astounding. Okay, and on the other side of the ball on defense, I don't know why anybody's overlooked Arizona's defense. They have a tough defense. And in this game, it's all over. Arizona is going to score a ton of points in this one. And I think Minnesota's in for a rough season.
Okay. And Dennis, we'll keep it right here. The Cowboys, after that great thrilling matchup with Tampa last week, getting 3.5 in LA playing the Chargers. And now you can bring up their quarterback.
Well, the Chargers quarterback is still a mystery to me, even though they won on the road last week. I don't think he's any good. I know that's contradictory to everybody else, but I'm not going to be hanging on him. What was the number on that game you had? The Chargers.
So I've got the Chargers laying 3.5 at home.
I'm trying to find it here.
And the total is 55 on that game. So Dallas getting 3.5 on the road.
Well, I'm going to take Dallas. I mean, here's something I'm going to have to do that I don't like to do is I'm going to have to apologize to Fred about the quarterbacks, us talking about the quarterbacks last week, because he was right and I was wrong. Now, tell me again, Arizona?
So anyway, the Cowboys are getting 3.5 on the road. The Chargers and 3.5.
Oh, yeah, I see it. I see it now. Yeah, the Chargers are laying at 3 at home. It's too many. I have to give it to Fred Wallen. He told me that Dak Prescott was going to be back and full speed and was pretty good. And I didn't think so. I didn't think he was ever any good. But when he played against Tampa the other night, he played a bang-up game, and it wasn't him that cost the Dallas team the game. They scored 30-some points. So Dak coming back did make a difference for the Cowboys. If they play anywhere close to what they did there, I'll take the points. Not sold on San Diego. I don't think LA is sold on them either. We'll see how many people fill that stadium for that game compared to the other game.
Okay, and Fred?
Dallas didn't show much of a running attack. Elliott did not show up. Now, the question is, will he show up in game 2 against the Chargers? If he doesn't, I think the Chargers are going to score some points on anybody. And where I disagree with Dennis, I think Herbert was a great All-American quarterback at Oregon. I think he's one of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the National Football League. They've got the wide receivers. And if Dallas isn't capable of running, the Chargers are going to have that ball for 35 or 40 minutes. And if they have that ball for 35 or 40 minutes, the Chargers are going to win. So I'm going to lean toward the Los Angeles Chargers.
Good luck with that one, folks. Good luck with that one, folks.
Okay, we have a disagreement. Fred, we'll keep it right here. Titans traveling to Seattle. Titans are getting 5 on the road, 54 the total, 54 and a hook on this one.
I think Seattle's going to kill them. Again, I'm unfair. It's slightly unfair because I think Russell Wilson is my favorite quarterback in this league. I saw him play at North Carolina State, and I said to a friend, we were watching the game, this kid can really play. And then he goes to Wisconsin, and he really played. Next thing you know, he's starring in the National Football League. He threw 4 touchdown passes last week. He'll throw 3 or 4 this week. I like Seattle.
And as a matter of fact, Fred, you were talking about that. I was surprised because you typically didn't see big-time quarterbacks taking that 5th year who had actually played well, and he had it at North Carolina State. Then he went, when Pete Carroll got him, Pete had signed a big-time quarterback that you thought Wilson would be second string, and Pete Carroll had him starting right out of the bat, and a couple of Super Bowls later, and he's not a big guy. He's only 5'10", really 5'10". They say 5'11", but he's a speedster.
Yeah, you know what? And also, he's a good guy. If you notice on these golf tournaments for charity, he's given $200,000, $300,000 away every time there's a golf tournament. So I know he's making millions, and people say, well, if you're making millions, what's a couple $100,000? A lot of people don't do it. Russell Wilson and his wife do it. Sort of like Clayton Kershaw with the Dodgers, same kind of people. I like those people. So maybe it's my heart too, but I think Seattle will win here.
Okay. And Dennis, let's talk.
I didn't get a chance on Seattle, and I have to chime in on Seattle.
My apologies, because I know you have an opinion.
Yes, and we told you last week how Russell Wilson made them get him an offensive line so he could stand there and throw touchdown passes. And that's just exactly what he did in that game. That was on the road. It was an easy win. I don't know anybody who had the other side of that knows anything about football. This game is going to be another blowout, okay? The line opened up at Seattle -3.5, okay? Before Tuesday rolled around, they were 6. They were up to 6. They're now 6.5. And I'm with Fred. They'll probably win by 2 touchdowns here. Tennessee has absolutely nothing. They will not be able to play up there in that loud, noisy, half dome or whatever they call that place in Seattle. And I too agree with him about Russell Wilson. He's a winner. He's going to win, and he's playing every down as if it counts. And they're just going to demolish Tennessee.
Okay. And our next game, the Chiefs travel to the Ravens. Ravens coming off, and this used to be a big factor, gentlemen, where the team that played on Monday night the next week really has a decided disadvantage because they have one less day to prepare. Is that still the case in the NFL? And is a number the Chiefs laying 3.5 on the road a good number? Dennis, I'll start with you.
Well, yeah, it's still the case in the NFL. because it's going to be awful tough for Baltimore to come back, even though they're at home. And let me tell you this, Baltimore's too injured to compete in this game. They have Lamar Jackson, and that's all. And when you can't, I watched their fifth team running back stand in there and watch linebackers run past him, him stick an arm out. When you don't have your regular players, you can't play your regular game. That puts the defense on hold. And I want to mention something about the Baltimore defense too. In the game against the Raiders, if you watch that game from the start to the finish, they played a prevent defense practically the whole game because they didn't know what the Raiders were going to do. Very seldom did they put pressure on Carr. And that might have been a difference in the game there too. But I don't want to get too off track on it, but I did. So where are we?
Okay, so you think that the Chiefs laying 3.5 on the road is a solid play?
Yeah, the Chiefs in Baltimore. The first thing I want to make a point of it is tough to go across country and play after a Monday night game either way. Okay, so yeah, that is figured into the point spread. And I also want to say something else about the point spreads. When they come out, they have all the injuries that they think they know of figured in. They have everything figured in, but there's just not enough manpower in the bookmaking company around the world to find out everybody that has COVID and everybody that doesn't have COVID. Now we're going to have some problems in the NCAA this week with some COVID. I hear the University of Georgia is infected, which is not a surprise, and nobody knows which part of their team's infected. So we've got some of that going on, and I'm afraid there's going to be some games coming up that you got to be watching for. I don't know whether COVID has something to do with this matchup or not, but what a line move.
Okay. And we are now going to go to the final game of the week. This is our Monday night game. And the powerhouse Detroit Lions, shocking enough, coming into the game 0-1, travel to Green Bay. And the Lions are getting 11.5 on the road. Dennis, we'll start with you. Is Aaron Rodgers going to get his head out of his butt?
No, I don't think so. And I don't think so all year. I don't think he wants to play for Green Bay. And I think the Green Bay team knows he doesn't want to play for Green Bay. And I don't think that does your clubhouse any good at all. I don't think he can snap out of that lousy performance he had last week overnight, coming home, win by double digits. That's crazy. I'm going the other. I'm taking the other side.
Fred, you heard it here. Dennis Tobler is betting the Detroit Lions, but he is getting 11.5. Fred, what's your thought?
Well, you got two Cal quarterbacks going head to head in this one. Rodgers, the veteran, and of course, I didn't like the fact that it seems that he was blaming other players on his club on the field for how badly the Packers were playing. Most of that was on Rodgers himself. But I don't think he'll never play a worse game than that. He'll play better. They will win straight up. And as far as the 11.5, there is no way on earth Fred's going to give 11.5 in a circumstance like this, even though I don't think the Lions are very good. I really don't. And again, that final score, 41-33, wasn't a true score. They scored, 3 touchdowns late. So the point is, it really wasn't 41-33 in their loss last week. So the Packers are going to win. Rodgers is going to play better. And again, he can't play worse. Fred's not giving 11.5.
Okay, Fred, I like that you're speaking in the second person. That is very classy on a show like this. And speaking of classy, if you want to see one of the best documentaries in any category, anytime, I would suggest fairly strongly taking a chance and taking a look at Now Place Your Bets. Dennis, you had something to do with that, didn't you?
Yes, sir. I was the executive producer of Now Place Your Bets, the history of sports betting in America. We put out the program in 2017, a year before it was legalized in the United States. Now 26 states have legal sports betting. And Now Place Your Bets, the story of the past 100 years it took to get to the point where betting was legal. And it tells the story and the people who were involved, who made that happen. It's a wonderful documentary. We've won numerous film festivals. You won an award for being the narration on the movie. I would invite everyone to go to nowplaceyourbets.com, buy a DVD, or vimeo.com/nowplaceyourbets and stream it to your home TV and watch this documentary. If you want to know how the world of sports gaming evolved, this is how it was done.
And if you want to hear and listen more to Fred, Fred, let us know where your show is and how to get a chance to listen to it.
Sports Overnight America, Friday night at 10 o'clock Pacific Daylight, Saturday night, 11 p.m. Pacific Daylight. You can go to Sports Byline or go to TuneIn and get it on all the apps, radio stations like in Las Vegas, KSHP 1400 on your dial. And we had Dennis on last week. We have Dennis on once every 5 or 6 weeks, and a lot of good guests, and it's a lot of fun to do. And hope you guys listen every Friday night at 10 o'clock Pacific and 11 o'clock Pacific on TuneIn. Thank you very much.
Well, hey, Fred, as usual, your delight. Dennis, you a lot of fun. Thanks again for loaning me the corporate plane and flying me down to the Tobler condo. And next week, sadly, I'll be back in Salt Lake. Fred, where are you going to be to do the show next week?
In the same radio room in my house that if I'm alive, that we're right now.
Okay.
I think both Fred and I have to work all the time. We don't get the gigs you get.
I know. Well, I married a woman who likes to travel, and there's good parts of getting married. I dodged it for 60 years, so what the heck? I'm there.
Enjoy yourself.
So, hey, want to thank Lee Spencer, as usual, spinning the dials. And next week, we have a brand new sponsor coming on board, and this is going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to have some money to bet ourselves. And so we'll be giving out great picks, and we'll be betting some serious money on them ourselves. So for everyone involved, thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time on Football Forecast Weekly. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Football Forecast Weekly, an affiliate of TSI Network.